Hello and welcome to this Year 10 GCSE Information Evening video for Balcarres School. Usually we'd like to have a meeting with parents of our new Year 10 pupils at the start of their GCSEs to explain a little bit about the grading system, a little bit about their targets and where they come from. Unfortunately, this year we're not able to do that in person, so I've tried to include as much of that information in this video as possible. I hope you find it informative, and obviously please feel free to contact the school if you have any questions. So when we're thinking about GCSEs, the good thing in terms of your children is that they will have started those at the beginning of this year. So although they missed out on some Year 9 teaching and had to learn remotely at the end of Year 9, they will, in most cases, have not started their GCSEs. And so the start of this year really does define kind of a starting point, a point that they're going to begin from on their GCSE journey. And that means that really they shouldn't feel that they are behind in any way. They shouldn't feel disadvantaged in any way. If we think about GCSE results that Balcarres achieves, then last year we achieved 91%, five grade 9 to 4, including English and maths. So we use this measure because it's similar to the old 5 A star to C grade, including English and maths, and it gives us an idea of how well our pupils are doing generally. And you can see that lots and lots of our pupils gain a really good set of results across a range of subjects, including English and maths. Another measure that we can measure our pupils by is a score called Progress 8. And what that looks at is how well do pupils in Balcarres do to similar pupils with prior attainment, so that's going to be their Key Stage 2 results, in other schools. And it looks at 8 key subjects. And the number gives you an idea of how well students do grade-wise in comparison to students of the same prior attainment. So a score here of 1.11 means that our students in each of those 8 subjects are doing better by 1 grade than the average pupil of a similar Key Stage 2 assessment. Now, it's a little bit complicated, but all I wanted to let you know is that regardless of prior attainment, all of our students here at Balcarres, aim for them is to make as much progress as possible. This figure, I must say, is an estimate because of the way that GCSE results were calculated last year. The fact that they were the centre assessed grades that we as a school gave means that this figure isn't going to be officially calculated by the DfE. Both of the piece of information I've given you about results are just to assure you that your child is in a really strong position in terms of the school they're at and the track record we have of helping pupils achieve good GCSE grades and make excellent progress. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about were the new style of GCSEs. Now, if you've had a child go through their GCSEs recently, this will be familiar to you. If this is your first child to go through GCSEs in a few years, or the last time you kind of thought about GCSEs were when you did them, then this will be a little bit new to you. So a few years ago, all the GCSEs were replaced by more demanding versions, but that's true for all students sitting their GCSEs, with a greater emphasis on content and more emphasis on the examinations that are taken at the end of Year 11, so in the summer of Year 11, and less emphasis on coursework and controlled assessments. Now, obviously, in subjects like product design and art, there's still a large emphasis on coursework, but in other subjects where there had been maybe a skew towards coursework, where the DfE felt that it could be better assessed using examination, there's less of that. And so, for example, in science, the practical element that was a coursework type of element has been removed, and that's all examined now. Now, your child is taking GCSEs in most of their subjects, and that's a 9 to 1 star GCSE. I'll talk about that in a moment. That we do have some exceptions. So in creative iMedia and health and social care, the course your child is taking is a Cambridge National, and that's graded in a slightly different way, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then in drama, the subject your child is taking will be an IGCSE, the I standing for International GCSE. And that's a conscious choice by the school because the IGCSE gives more weight to the practical element of the course rather than the examination. And so by having our children take the IGCSE course, they have more practical work that's assessed and less examination. So the new GCSE grading system then is a 9 to 1 system where 9 is the highest grade and 1 is the lowest. For the first year, a few years ago, of the new courses, the grade 4 was matched to a grade C. So the same proportion of children that got a grade C in the previous year were given a grade 4 in the first year of the new style. And that's the same for the grade 7 and the A grade. And what that meant and has meant is there haven't been a huge shift in the number of pupils gaining these grades at GCSE. So you don't need to worry that your child is at a disadvantage to children maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They matched the courses, and that means that the same proportions will get the equivalent of an A grade, the same proportions will get the equivalent of a C grade, and so on. Now, in order to raise standards then, what the DfE have done is said that they want to, and they're interested in looking at the proportion of students that gain a grade 5, which is effectively a high C or low B grade in comparison to the grade C, which is the equivalent of a grade 4. So they've said that really they'd like schools to be aiming for to help pupils, as many pupils as possible, achieving grade 5 or higher, with that being the new benchmark. Now, again, you don't need to worry too much about that. We'll obviously work with your child at an appropriate level and be working with them to make progress at whatever level they are working. Just to talk a little bit about those Cambridge Nationals then. So they're graded on a distinction, merit and pass system, and then they have equivalent GCSE scores. So the very highest grade you can get in the Cambridge National is a level 2 distinction, and that's the equivalent of a GCSE grade 8.5, so in between the grade 8 and 9. A merit is a 5.5. And a pass is the equivalent of a grade 4, so the old C grade. If a child doesn't reach level 2, then they can be given a level 1 qualification, and you can see that's equivalent to GCSE grades 3, 2, or 1.25 if they get a level 1 pass. The other difference with the Cambridge Nationals is that there might be examinations that take place throughout the 2 years, and there will be coursework that's submitted throughout the 2 years, and pupils have an opportunity to resit these often. That's not something that you need to worry about if your child's asked to do a resit. That's taking advantage of the way the course works. So please don't feel like your child's failed in some way if their health and social care teacher, for example, says, oh, they're going to have another go at that exam, or they're going to have another go at that piece of coursework. That's absolutely normal. So with each of our pupils in year 10, when they start their GCSEs, we set them a new set of target grades. And these target grades are grades that we would like them to be aiming for in their GCSE and Cambridge National subjects. So in order to set that, then we use a piece of software called Fisher Family Trust. And that takes into account your child's Key Stage 2 scores in reading and maths. Now, your child sat the new style of Key Stage 2 assessment, and so far we haven't got a year group that has set that style of assessment and then gone on to take their GCSEs. The time interval hasn't been great enough yet. So the piece of software we use takes into account that and looks at a kind of a grading curve to set those target grades. And so it's more difficult for us to do that here in school, but you don't need to panic. We've got a method to be able to do that. Along with that, we use our knowledge of your child because obviously they're in year 10 and we know them well by now. So when we're setting their target grade, we take into account this FFT, Fisher Family Trust grade that the piece of software gives us. We look at their previous achievements within school here, and then we give the information to your child's GCSE teacher, and they have the final say and can adjust the target as they see fit. Now, the progress of a student then is based on the GCSE grades that they achieve compared to other students with the same Key Stage 2 scores. So when we look at how much progress a student has taken, we basically look at what score they came into the school on at Key Stage 2 and what GCSE grades they get. When we set targets, we use FFT5, Fisher Family Trust 5, and that sets targets based on their Key Stage 2 score that would put the school and its students in the top 5% nationally for progress. And so that means if a student was to hit those targets, then they'd be making progress within the top 5% nationally. Now that seems pretty high, and it is, but as a school, we are consistently within the top 5% of schools for progress. And so it's a really suitable target to be setting for our children. This is just the piece of software that we use in order to do that. And you can see it takes into account lots of pieces of information and generates a grade for us that is a suitable place for us to start in setting that target. But then those targets get provided to members of GCSE teaching staff, and they use their knowledge of the pupil and any prior assessments that they've done in the school in order to come to that final target. Now, we want to come to something that's really reasonable and that the teachers feel like they've had a really good say in. So we actually do that process a little bit later. So we do that after the half term, and that gives teachers half a term to get to know the pupils that they're working with. An example might be then that Fisher Family Trust 5, FFT 5, gives a student a target of a 6+, but their maths teacher thinks from assessments that they've done in lessons and their knowledge of the pupil that they can do better, and so we'll set a target grade of a grade 7 instead. Now, we'll report that information then on their report. So you will see that they'll have a GCSE target grade, but their first report this year won't have that because we won't have generated it. We will give you just a grade for effort at that point. And really this year, it's that effort that we would like you to be focusing on. It will take a while for a pupil to be working at their GCSE target grade level. It's a 2-year course and we would expect it to take time for a student to reach that level. So the important thing this year is that their effort is high and we can see that their effort is in moving in the right direction or is always at a high level. And then you should see that the first time we start to give progress grades, it may be lower than the target grade, but over the course of the 2 GCSE years, you should see those grades hopefully move closer and closer to their targets. Now, sometimes people feel that their child's target's too high. We have a lot of experience of doing this, and the targets that we set work well with the majority of pupils. So we'd like you to kind of trust us on that. We'd like pupils to work hard anyway because they've got nothing to lose. At the end of the day, if they don't quite reach those targets, then no one is ever going to kind of know that. It's not reported outside of the school. And aiming high will allow the pupil really to make the maximum progress they can. And we always ask pupils to believe in themselves and what they're capable of achieving. If they're too low, then we're more than happy to be proved wrong and to increase the targets. So when the progress grades start to be issued, if a child's progress grades are higher than their targets, then obviously something's not quite right there. And in that case, talk to the teacher and ask the teacher if it's possible to raise their target. And the vast majority of the time, unless there's an exceptional circumstance why we don't want to do that, then we'll be happy to do that. Now, we are early on in year 10, but it's going to be a quick 2 years. They fly past. And so we would ask pupils to think about revision. We will deliver revision sessions in their tutor times to try and help them revise. But there's lots of information on the VLE to help them revise and prepare their revision and think about what they're going to do. So in the student zone on the VLE is a section called Revision Help, and there are loads of resources there to help your child thinking about the revision styles that are best for those, preparing revision resources, and really trying to get the most out of their revision. So although it's early now, that resource is available to them and they can go and take a look at that. As part of that section, there is some information on coping with exam stress. And obviously, they're starting their GCSEs, and so pupils will often start to feel a little bit more pressure. Now, stress is part of a healthy human response to challenging situations. And most people find that exams and GCSE exams are challenging, and so they will experience stress. And learning to cope with that is an important life skill. You will have been through exams and you will have felt stressed about them, I'm sure, and you've developed strategies to be able to cope with that. What's important is that the stress doesn't turn into anxiety that then has a negative impact on how the pupil can operate and how the pupil maybe physically feels. And so in that revision section, there's some really useful information about techniques that can be used to deal with that stress and make sure it doesn't turn into anxiety, and guide pupils through activities that they can do in order to reduce their stress levels and try and make sure things don't turn into anxiety. So that's under the exam stress section, and pupils can go in and take a look at that. Now, you know your child best. If the techniques that we've suggested and the strategies that we've suggested don't work, then please do contact us and let us know. If you notice that there's a major change in the way your child's operating, then let us know, and we might have some other things that we can do in order to help your child overcome that. So how can you help? Well, if you can check that they're completing homeworks and continuing with their coursework where it's appropriate and not leaving things to the last minute as we move through, that would be really, really helpful. If you can ask questions on how work is going, get them to show you some of their work, then that can be really beneficial. I do understand that it's not always easy to get teenagers to have those kinds of conversations with you, and we don't want to add to any kind of negative feeling or anything like that. We don't want to cause that. So again, you know your child best. If you can, keeping an eye on what they're doing in terms of their work can be really helpful. And talk to them about coursework deadlines, and help them manage their time. That is really beneficial to pupils. If you've not done so already, then signing up to the VLE to keep an eye on when homeworks are due and courseworks are due is a really, really useful thing to do. Please do feel free to contact us if you've got any concerns, and so the appropriate head of house is happy to receive your email. If it's a question that's specific to a department such as maths or science, then please do feel free to email the head of department directly. If you don't know their email address, then the head of house will be happy to give that to you. Now, finally, what can we kind of consider in terms of helping your child do their best? It's been tricky recently with attendance, and I imagine that is going to be the case for a while into the future. But where possible, if you can make sure your child attends as much as possible, that is going to be helpful. Attendance is really important. Obviously, now we're living in interesting times, and obviously you need to make sensible decisions. But attendance is a key thing. Sleep is really important. It's been shown that if pupils don't get adequate sleep, then their academic performance does suffer. One of the key things to help them with sleep is them having a good kind of nighttime routine that doesn't involve them using screens too late into the evening. Diet is important. As your child kind of does more and more and is getting towards exams and those kind of things, it can be tempting for them to choose high sugar, high fat foods to give them a quick energy burst. That can lead to a lot of ups and downs, and that can make it difficult for them to concentrate in the long term. So helping them maintain a healthy diet as we move through these couple of years can be really important. And remember that they are still children. There does need to be a balance between work and play. They shouldn't be working all the time. If they like football, they should be able to go and play football. If they like doing dance, they should continue to do that. And so getting that balance right is important. We don't want to have them stressed out right at the start of year 10. It's more of a kind of a long-term race or a long distance race that we're running here, and we want them to be ready for the end of year 11 when they're going to sit their GCSEs. So I hope that some of that information has been useful and helped clarify how the GCSEs work, clarify how we set targets, and give you some ideas of places that you can look for information should you want to help your child with revision or coping with exam stress and those kinds of things. If you do have any questions, then please do feel free to contact us. And as I say, your child is in exactly the right place to do really, really well. We're going to work with them carefully over the next couple of weeks, next couple of years, I should say, and help them achieve their absolute best.